This isn't just another missing person case. This is a story where a father would rather blow up his own children than let the truth come out, where a grandfather kept thousands of images of the woman his son murdered, where evidence was hidden in safety deposit boxes, buried in mine shafts, and scattered across 3 states. In this true story, a mother of 2 vanished from her own home in the middle of a blizzard. Her husband said he took the boys camping at midnight in a snowstorm in December. He was the only person who could explain what happened that night, and his story made absolutely no sense. It all started with a question: where is Susan Powell? December 6, 2009, West Valley City, Utah. Susan Cox Powell was 28 years old, a loving mother, a devoted friend. She worked as a stockbroker, sang in her church choir, and kept a detailed journal about her life, her dreams, and her fears. That Sunday evening, she was home with her husband Josh and their 2 young sons, Charlie and Braden, ages 4 and 2. By Monday morning, she was gone. Josh's story: he'd spontaneously decided to take the boys camping in the middle of the night during a blizzard, in the West Desert, in freezing temperatures. When he returned home nearly 24 hours later, he acted surprised that Susan wasn't there. But here's what he didn't know. Susan had been preparing for this moment. Susan and Josh met in 2000 at a church event. She was bright, optimistic, full of life. He was quiet, controlling, and came with something she didn't immediately see: his father, Stephen Powell. From the moment Susan entered that family, Stephen became obsessed with her. He filmed her without her knowledge. He wrote sexual fantasies about her in his journals. He had thousands of images of her, many taken through windows, in her bedroom while she showered. Josh knew and did nothing. By 2008, Susan was terrified. She even gave a handwritten will to her friends that read, "If I die, it may not be an accident, even if it looks like one." She knew someone was going to kill her. She just didn't know when. Let me tell you about the night she disappeared. Josh claimed he left around midnight to go camping with 2 toddlers in sub-freezing weather. He said Susan was home, asleep. But neighbors saw Susan's minivan in the driveway all night. It never moved. When Josh returned the next evening, he called his work to say he was late because Susan wasn't home. Not, "She's missing," not, "I'm worried." He said he was late for work. Police arrived. The house was freezing. 2 fans had been set up in the living room, pointed at a wet spot on the couch. The wet spot tested positive for Susan's blood. Josh said he didn't know why the fans were there. He didn't know why the house was so cold in December. He said maybe Susan had a nosebleed. In the garage, police found a freshly cleaned carpet cleaner, and in the washing machine, blood-stained comforters. But no body, no crime scene, no confession. Just a man who took his children camping in a blizzard, and a wife who never came home. Here's where this gets haunting. What if you knew someone was going to hurt you? What if you told everyone around you that your life was in danger? What if you wrote it down, recorded it, documented it, and then you vanished anyway? Susan did everything right. She told her friends. She made a safety plan. She prepared evidence in case something happened. But she made one mistake. She underestimated how far Josh would go to keep his secrets. Because Josh wasn't just hiding Susan's murder, he was hiding something much, much worse. After Susan disappeared, police couldn't arrest Josh. No body, no case. But they could investigate his father. In 2012, they raided Stephen Powell's home in Washington state. What they found made seasoned detectives physically ill. Thousands upon thousands of images of Susan in her bedroom, getting dressed, sleeping, showering, some taken through air vents in the house they all shared. Videos of neighbor children recorded without consent. Journals describing his sexual obsession with Susan and his desire to have her instead of his son. Stephen was arrested for voyeurism. And in his possessions, police found something that was quite bizarre. A handwritten song written by Stephen about killing Susan, about where her body might be, about the cold desert ground. Josh's father didn't just enable the murder, he may have helped plan it. By 2012, Josh had moved to Washington State with the boys. He'd lost custody, but he still had supervised visitation rights. Social workers noticed the boys were starting to talk. Charlie, now 7 years old, had begun to remember things. He told his teacher, "My mom is dead. My dad killed her." He described a trip to a desert, a mine shaft, a campfire. Child Protective Services was building a case to terminate Josh's parental rights permanently. Josh knew it, and on February 5, 2012, he made a choice. He decided if he couldn't have his sons, no one would. That Sunday morning, a social worker brought Charlie and Braden to Josh's rental home for a supervised visit. The boys ran to the door, excited to see their dad. Josh yanked them inside, slammed the door in the social worker's face. She heard the boys screaming. She smelled gasoline. Josh Powell murdered his sons with a hatchet and then set the house on fire, killing all 3 of them. The social worker called 911. The dispatcher refused to send police, saying it was not an emergency. She begged, she pleaded, she told them she could hear screaming. The dispatcher said to call child services. By the time firefighters arrived, the house was an inferno. Charlie was 7, Braden was 5. Medical examiners found that both boys had injuries consistent with hatchet wounds before the fire started. Josh wanted to make sure they didn't survive. In the ashes, investigators found evidence Josh had been planning this for weeks. Gasoline cans strategically placed throughout the house, voicemails and emails he'd sent that morning, saying goodbye and blaming Susan's family. And in the debris, they found another horror: Charlie's small backpack. Inside were drawings he'd made of his family. In every single picture, his mother was missing. Susan Powell's body has never been found, but there are theories, strong ones. In the months after Susan vanished, Josh made unusual trips to an abandoned mine shaft in Utah's West Desert, the same area where he claimed to go camping that December night. Police searched the mine shaft multiple times. They found remnants of a fire, bone fragments too degraded to test, and a handmade purple scarf identical to one Susan owned. Josh's computer showed he'd researched, how long does it take for a body to decompose? Abandoned mines in Utah. Can cadaver dogs smell through rock? Stephen Powell's journals described that same mine shaft in disturbing detail. So why haven't they found her? Because that mine shaft is over 400 feet deep, unstable, filled with debris, water, and collapsed tunnels. Recovering a body from it would require millions of dollars and would put search teams at extreme risk. Susan's family believes she's there, in the cold, in the dark, just like Stephen Powell's song described. Here's what makes this case even more devastating. Before Josh killed himself and his sons, he'd been systematically destroying evidence for years. After the explosion, investigators found hard drives in the rental home smashed beyond recovery, a safety deposit box Josh had rented under a fake name, now empty, donations made to Goodwill of exactly the items Susan had in her craft room, multiple storage units across 2 states, all emptied the week before he died. But he missed something. In 2013, a family member discovered a hard drive Josh had hidden in his father's home. On it, disturbing home videos, recordings of Susan clearly uncomfortable, begging Josh to stop filming her, and internet searches made the day after Susan disappeared. How to clean blood from carpet, hire a lawyer, Utah, body decomposition timeline. The man who claimed he had no idea what happened to his wife had been Googling body decomposition before anyone even reported her missing. Stephen Powell died in prison in 2018, taking whatever he knew to his grave. Josh's brother, Michael Powell, killed himself in 2013, jumping off a parking garage. The Powell family tree ended in violence, obsession, and death. But Susan's family, they're still fighting. Here's what keeps me up at night about this case. Susan Powell did everything you're supposed to do. She documented the abuse. She told her friends. She made an escape plan. She created evidence in case she disappeared. She gave everyone around her a roadmap to prove what happened. And she still vanished. Her children still died. And her body is still out there, somewhere in the Utah desert, unreachable. The last entry in Susan's journal, written days before she disappeared, said this: "I'm so afraid, but I'm trying to be strong for my boys. I just want them to remember me as someone who fought." Charlie and Braden's last words, as Josh locked them in that house, were, "Where's Mommy?" They never got to know she'd been fighting for them all along. Susan Powell's case remains officially unsolved. No one has ever been charged with her murder. And somewhere in the darkness of an abandoned mine shaft in Utah, a mother who did everything right is still waiting to come home.